Okay, good morning. We are doing today Yud Chetman Beis. We are going to finish the paragraph Hashem, but we are up to Yud Chetman and Aleph. We just finished on Friday discussing the two answers, Abai and Ravashi, as to if we hold that the first days that they're in Nisan, we have the first 8 days, which was Asr and Hesped and Tainus, because of the fact that they solidified the carbon tummet. And then from the 8th day of Nisan all the way till the end of Pesach, that they solidified the Yantif of Shavuos. So the Mar said, why is it that you have to say that the 8th day is Asr? Why is it that you have to say that the 8th day is Asr? And on that, the Gemara said, what? The 8th day is already going to be Asr from the carbon tummet holiday. I don't need to tell you that it's going to be Asr now on the holiday of Shavuos. It's already Asr from the carbon tummet, from the fact that they beat the Stukim. On that, the Gemara said that, well, you needed sometimes for the day before, the day before. So we're starting out over here with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi that loy nitzurcha, you don't need it except maybe for the day before. The Gemara says, what do you mean the day before? What up the first day of the 8th day holiday that we have the beginning of Nisan? The beginning of Nisan is Rosh Chodesh. So why do you have to say from the first day of Nisan till the 8th day of Nisan? It's also because of the fact that there was a holiday for winning on the carbon tummet and figuring out the battle with the Stukim of whether or not the carbon tummet could be brought from a carbon tzibur or only carbon yachid. You already know it's Aser because it's Rosh Chodesh. The Mar said, according to this idea of Rabbi Yossi, that's the day before. That's not necessary over here because the day before Rosh Chodesh, the Chav Tes of Adar, is also the day after another holiday called the 28th day of Adar. There's a 28th day of Adar holiday because some there with the Romans. The Mar gave two answers. One answer was from Abaya, one answer from Rav Ashi. Abaya said that it could be was not a situation of a Chasadik a month. It could be was a Modik a month. So if that was the case, then Adar had 30 days. So the 28th day of Adar was the holiday. The 29th day would also be a holiday, fine, like Rabbi Yossi. But the 30th day wouldn't be a holiday at all. So if I didn't say the first day of Nisan was in fact Asr, not just Asr Chodesh, but as this new holiday for the carbon Talmud, then I wouldn't know that the day before is going to be Asr. The day before the day before is going to end up being what? It's going to end up being the 30th. The 30th is not the day after the 28th day holiday. So on the holiday of the 28th day of Adar, the 29th day will be Asr. Fine. Like Rabbi Yossi, the day after is also Asr. But the 30th is totally fine then. Why? Because the day before Rosh Chodesh is not Asr mitzad Rosh Chodesh. Because we said about Rosh Chodesh, so the very Thursday in Tzrichim Chizuk. You only need to have Chizuk for the day before rabbinic ordination, not a Daraisa one. So you only know that the 30th day would be Asr if you say the first day is Asr mitzad, not Rosh Chodesh, but mitzad this new holiday of winning the carbon Talmud fight with its Dukim at that time. So now if the first day of Nisan is Asr because of the winning of the battle with Stukim, so now I know the day before, like Rabbi Yossi is also going to be Asr. So now I know that the 30th day is going to remain Asr as well. Second answer of the Gemara was the answer from Rav Ashi. Rashi said that we could talk about a situation where it's a Chodesh Chaser, but nevertheless, there's a difference between the day after and a normal day that's Aser and this. The day that's normally Aser after, let's say, the 20th day of Adar is the Leila Sanab, you're not allowed to fast on it. So the 29th day is Aser in what sense? It's Aser to fast on it. But not to say that it's going to be Aser to fast and to have a hesped. To say that it's Aser to fast and to have a hesped that's pretty strong. What's the reason over here we were going to say that it's Aser not just to fast but also to have a hesped? Because the fact that it's sandwiched the 29th day between these two holidays, between the holiday of the first 8 days of Nisan and this 28th day of Adar holiday. There's two different holidays. The 29th is the recipient of the largesse of two different Yom Tovim. The 28th day Gezer against the Romans being Batul, and the first 8-day holiday of Nisan because of the winning over the tzdukim about the carbon talmud. So because of that, it would end up being answer both in the fasting and also in giving a hesped. So therefore, if it didn't say the first day of Nisan and only said the second day of Nisan, I wouldn't know that. Why? Because I would say the second day of Nisan starts means the first day of Nisan is also because the day before, like Rabbi Yossi, fine, but I wouldn't know. That the day before that is going to be especially Aser. The only way I know that is now that I have this 28th day holiday and I have this first day of Nisan holiday. So then the 29th day becomes a holiday that's sandwiched in between two. It's sandwiched in between two holidays. So then it's not only going to be Aser in time, it's also going to be Aser in Hesped. That's what we got to on Friday. Now the Gemara says another answer, and the Gemara says as follows. Says the Gemara that we are up to, it's about 10 lines up from the wide lines on your Ches Amar Mar. So Amar Mar mitamnaya bevatzef me'adaya, from the 8th day of Nisan until the end of Pesach. This is again quoting from Megillas Taanit. Itoysev Chagah d'Shvuaya d'Leil Mispeit. We have the Yontif of Shavuos, Ches Amar Aleph. It's on Ches Amar Aleph, 10 lines up from the bottom. Right? So we're quoting here from the Megillas Taanit. The Megillas Taanit says that from the 8th day of Adar until the end of Pesach, I'm sorry, from the 8th day of Nisan until the end of Pesach, then you're not able to fast over there. Why? Right? Because you have the Yontif of Shavuos, and the Yontif of Shavuos is not, was not simple in those days. Remember, there was a huge machlekes with the tzdukim. What does it mean, Machras HaShabbos? Doesn't mean the day after Pesach, the 16th day of Nisan. It doesn't mean Machras HaShabbos literally on the Sunday after Pesach. So, in other words, you would wait to start counting the Sira according to tzdukim, not from the day after Pesach, but from the day of Shabbos after Pesach. So, if let's say Pesach was on a Monday, you have to wait until that Shabbos to start counting, right? So Pesach for them was the same as us. It's the 15th day of Nisan. And the 16th day, you bring the Omer, and our counting is the day after Pesach, and you start counting from them. So when we say Machas HaShabbos, it means Machas HaPesach. And we find other times that Shabbos is used as a holiday. Like, for example, by Yom Kippur, we have Shabbos, and Shabbos doesn't always mean Shabbos. It could be Tuesday. It still could be called a Shabbos. But the Stukim didn't feel that. They said, no, it means Shabbos, literal Shabbos. So that meant that whatever Pesach was didn't make a difference. You only start counting from Sunday, from the day after Shabbos. So then Shavuos always comes out for them on Shabbos. And this old Stuki told Rabbi Yechim and Zakir that the Torah was having mercy on the Jewish people. It wanted to give you a 2-day yontif, not to have to come to all the Beis Hamikdash for just one day and then go back home. So Rabbi Yechim and Zakir won, and then we have a clear. Everyone agrees one Shavuos is. So they made a holiday. They made a holiday from the 8th day of Nisan all the way through the end of Pesach, that one should not do fasting or have spayed them on it because of this big battle with the tzdukim about the day of when you start counting the 50 days. So this is what it says in Megillas Taanit. From the 8th day of Nisan until the end of Pesach, because we have this fundamental decision about when you make the holiday of Shavuos, when you start counting, so we don't fast and we don't even give Espedim on that day. So the Gemara asks, why do you have to say that we're talking about from the 8th day? Let's say we're talking about from the 9th day. Why? Of course the 8th day is also. Why? You're talking about Tamida. Of course the 8th day is also. Why? Because that is the day when they finished up the carbon talmud holiday. Remember, there's a lot of battles with Stukim in those days in the Beis Hamikdash. So we had the fight with the Stukim about the carbon talmud. We're going to land it today by Rosh Chodesh. Is the carbon talmud a carbon yachid, or is it only a carbon tzibur? And the tzdukim could be a carbon yachid. They darshan at the pasuk. Right? The pasuk says, "As the kevus echad taseh b'boiker taseh mashmi yachid." Right? And we argued back to them. No, it says that carbon ilachmi leishai tishmer lahakav is mashma lashon rabbim. We said to them that a carbon talmud is only a carbon tzibur. Cannot be a carbon yachid. That's why we have the lishkas for the carbon talmud. And they said no. So the Gemara is saying, why do I have to tell you that the holiday for celebrating when Shavuos is fundamentally made certain is starting from the 8th day of Nisan. We already know the 8th day of Nisan is a holiday. Why do we know the 8th day of Nisan is already a holiday? Because it's the end of the holiday figuring out the carbon tamid. So I don't need to tell you that then the 8th day is a holiday for Shavuos. It's already a holiday for the Talmud. So I could start telling you that it's the 9th day. That's the Gemara's question. And the Gemara came the ilu mikol milsa. Since it's possible to have a day that's going to come along and what? And basically, some event's going to take place and going to cancel out the first holiday, and we wouldn't have it. So then I wouldn't know that the 8th day is what? Going to be us, or because the holiday's gone. This holiday for the celebrant, the Talmud is finished. So, okay, the 8th day will remain usher. It will nevertheless be the first day of the holiday of the Shavuos. So in other words, if God forbid they would take away this holiday, for whatever reason it would have to be canceled, so then I have the next holiday already there. So you could have them overlapping with one another. So the 8th day will be the last day of the Carbon Common holiday. It'll be the first day of the Shavuos holiday. They'll overlap, it's true. But it's necessary because there could one day be a time where we lose this first holiday of the Carbon Tamid, so we have the next holiday, and the 8th day will remain usher regardless. That's the Gemara to this. It says the Gemara, really? If that's true, so once you give me this answer, then I'll go back to the initial question about the 29th day of Adar. Right? You said we were trying to find, well, maybe it's a Chodesh Mole, so you had to have a 30th. We were trying to figure out why is it necessary to say the first day of Nisan was us. The first day of Nisan is Rosh Chodesh. Oh, we have to get the day before. The day before is the day after the 28th day holiday in Adar. Why do I have to specifically say that there is a holiday on the first day of Nisan when it's Rosh Chodesh? So we try to say, well, maybe it's a Chodesh Mole. So the 30th wouldn't be a day after the 28th day holiday. So you need to have what? And a Chodesh Mole. You need to say the first day of Nisan, because that's how you know the 30th day is going to be Asav Adar. That's one possibility. Or the Gemara said, the second answer of Rav Ashi, it's a Chodesh Chaser, but it would only be Asr and Taanit after the 28th day holiday. Around the 29th, it will only be Asr and Taanit. You want to make it Asr not just in Taanit on the 29th, but also Asr and Hesped. The only way to do that is to say that it's the day before the day of the first day of Nisan, which would then be a holiday from both sides. So it's not just going to be Asr and and it's also going to be Asr and Hesped Fatir. So says the Gemara, once you give me now a new answer, which is holidays could be canceled, so you want to make sure to say something just in case a holiday gets canceled. So say that here also. So Hashad Asr Lahaki Asr V'Tishanami Kevin Dilo Mikla Milso Ubatlina LeEsr V'Tamnaya Esr V'Tisha Gufe Asr. So nevertheless, if we have a situation that we're now going to say that holidays could be canceled, so Hashad Asr Lahaki Esr V'Tishanami. So too by the 20th day of Adar, Kevin Dilo Mikla Milso, since an event could take place, Ubatlina LeEsr V'Tamnaya, so that the 28th day holiday in Adar could be canceled. So Esr V'Tisha Gufe Asr. The 29th day will nevertheless remain Asr. How will it remain Asr? The 28th day is canceled. It will not be Asr because of the 28th day of Adar holiday. So how will it be canceled? The 29th will only be canceled because the day before the first day of Nisan holiday. So because I'm saying that I have the day that starts the first day of Nisan, even though it happens to be Rosh Chodesh, so because the contract the day before is Asr as well, so now even in an event that the 28th day of other holiday is canceled, I still know the 29th day is going to be Asr because it's the day before first day of Nisan. And since the day before the first day of Nisan is the Asr, if it's a rabbinic holiday, not just the Rosh Chodesh, so now I know that it'll be Asr nonetheless. Fine. So says the Gemara. So Kevin the Lumik Lamelsa. But the last time now is Esrim Tisha Gufa Asr. The Havla Yom and the Mekamed Yom with you talking to me, right? Because the day before the day when they solidified the carbon tamid, which is the first day of Nisan, and therefore now I have a third answer to explain why it is necessary to say the first day of Nisan is Asr in the Hesped. All right, I have the answer of Abaya, I have the answer of Rashi, now I have the third answer that the Gemara just gives here. Fine, so that's like a Gemara doesn't have a two dots, but essentially this is the end of that topic. So we could make these Gemaras fit with Rabbi Yossi. That's the Gemara's conclusion until now. What's very interesting is the next line of the Gemara. The Gemara tells us like this: Idmar B'chia Bar Asi Amar Halach Rabbi Yossi, Shmuel Amar Halach Rabbi Meir. The Gemara said that the machlekes between Rav and Shmuel as to whether or not the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi or like Rabbi Meir. Again, in the Mishnah, if you look back on Tesvav, never mentioned Rabbi Meir, right? But what do we know? right? We know Stam mentions Rameir, so we have Rameir in the Mishnah, even though it's not mentioned. Second, the Gemara is telling us over here, this is Machlokes Rav and Shmuel, if the halach is like a Meir or like Rabbi Yossi. What do we know about Rav and Shmuel? The halach is like what? Shmuel by what? Dinei Mamanis, and halacha like Rav by Yisrael. This is what? The situation of fasting is Yisrael or Mamanistic issues. Obviously, Yisrael issues. So halacha for sure should be like what? Like Rav. Who does Rav say halacha is like? Like Rabbi Yossi. More than that, the Gemara in Erevin Memvav tells us, we've mentioned this before, that when you have a halacha, when you have a machlekes between Rameh and Rabbi Yehuda, who's the halacha like? Rabbi Yehuda. When you have a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, who's the halacha like? Rabbi Yossi. So therefore, says the more partial, when you have a machlekes between Rameh and Rabbi Yossi, who's the halacha like? Rabbi Yossi. So if that's the case, what's even the question? What's even the doubt about it? Obviously, halacha has to be like what? Like Rabbi Yossi. That the fasting should be when? What did the Mishnah tell us? Right? If you're going to have a situation where you say that it's also to fast on a certain day of the year, so you have Rabbi Yossi who says L'fanav L'achrav is also. I'm sorry, the Rabbi Yossi says L'fanav L'achrav mutter. Rameir says L'fanav L'achrav is mutter. But according to Rabbi Yossi, if you have a day that's usher in fasting, before it's usher, and the day after it's mutter. What happens if the day the loyal is mispaid behind? It's usher to do a hesped on that day. So according to Meir, it's Aser the day before, but the day after is Mutter. According to Rabbi Yossi, the day before and the day after is Aser. So that's partially how it should be. Nevertheless, Shmuel disagrees. Shmuel says the halacha is like our Meir. So the Gemara asks, "Mi Amar Shmuel Haki?" Did Shmuel really say this? Shmuel really say that the halacha is like Rabbi Meir, not like Rabbi Yossi? But doesn't Rabbi Shimon say, "Umatam behind"? Why does the Mishnah tell us behind and behind 2 times, which is Mashas Rashi says? A sort of a meistic type of language. Why does it say behind and behind? I'm in the Mishnah, right? The loyal not behind, the loyal mispaid behind. To teach you, shehein asurin, those days that are being answered, they are asur, but lefnei la'achrei mutar. But the day before and the day after are mutar. Ve'amar Shmuel halach Reb Shimon Gamliel, and the Shmuel said the halach is like Reb Shimon Gamliel. So what is the Gemara saying right now? At this stage of the Gemara, what does it mean? Unbelievable, right? The Gemara is saying, no, Shmuel said the halacha is like Shimon Gamliel. But you just said that Shmuel says the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. So which one is it? It says the Gemara, unbelievable. Meikar Savar cave in the Lekatana, the Meikok Rabbi Meir. Amar halacha Rabbi Meir. Right, we have a principle in Shas. Whenever the halacha is Meir Rabbi Yossi, halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Nevertheless, Shmuel says, I don't care. The halacha is like Rabbi Meir. Why? Because as Rashi explained, this is a Drabanan. So we're not going to be so machman on Drabanan the day that we're making a holiday. Okay, it's important. We worked out the carbon tamid. We worked out Shavuos. These are very important. Absolutely. But to say that the day before these holidays, the day after these holidays, also going to be us and has been and that is it's a step too far. For Drabanan, we're not going to go that far, says Shmuel. So, but Shmuel didn't have a leg to stand on. He's an Amira. Who's he going to be able to rely on? Who's the Elon God that he's going to be title himself on? So he didn't see. So all the machlokes are Meir Rabbi Yossi. So even though normally we say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, he went with Rabbi Meir because did not want to be machmer on the Rabbanan Dikadeis like this. That not just the Rabbanan Dikadeis on certain fasting or in Hesped, but the day before, the day after that is too much. Says the Gemara, Meikar Sava kept like a time to make Rabbi Meir in the beginning because he did not know of any Tana that disagreed with Rabbi Yossi except for Rabbi Meir. So he said, "Amar lach Rabbi Meir." But Kevin the Shama the Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, then Mekel Tzvei wants to hear the Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. So more Mekel than Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir at least says on the days right on Loyal Sadna behind, he says Rabbi Meir that the day before and after are mutter. But on the days Loyal Spade behind, Rabbi Meir says also the day before. The day after he says mutter, but the day before he says after. The day before Rabbi Shimon says no. Even the Loyal Sadna behind and Loyal Spade behind, it's always mutter the day before and the day after. So once he heard Rabbi Shimon says that, then he said that like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. So in other words, we asked the question: how could Shmuel argue with Rav on this point? Forget the idea of what do you call the principles of Psak of Rav and Shmuel and Heter versus Mum. Forget how we paskin. But how could Shmuel argue when we have a principle in Psak that between our Meir and Rabbi Yossi, Allah is always like Rabbi Yossi? That is our question on the Gemara. How could Shmuel say that? The answer to the Gemara is that it's not relevant. Shmuel only said it as the interim measure because he was like, "There's no way that the Allah can be like Rabbi Yossi." Once he found Reb Shimon Gamliel, he jumped to Reb Shimon Gamliel. That's perfectly fine. You have Reb Shimon Gamliel arguing with Reb Yosi. That's not a question at all. But as to the Havamina, how could he pass like a mayor over Reb Yosi when we know the halachas of psak is not like that? So we have a specific difference over here for Shmuel, and that is this was a drabanan day, and we're going to make the days before, the days after. He said it can't be that. That's too much. Even if the principles of psak normally say you have to go to Reb Yosi, he was going with Reb Meir. But in the end, it's not a question b'chalal because he goes to Reb Shimon Gamliel himself, who was even more mekel than Reb Meir. Here's the Gemara, Amar Bali, Amar Abchia Bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, also Rabbi Yosi. So too Bali said in the name of Rabbi Bar Abba, in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi. Now we know also that when it comes to Rav and Rabbi Yechanan, the halacha as well is going to be that the halacha is like Rabbi Yechanan. But the situation over here that we're adding in, bringing in Rabbi Yechanan into the equation, is that Rabbi Yechanan saying that halacha is like Rabbi Yosi. So here is not machlokes between Rav and Rabbi Yechanan. Rav is agreeing, and Rabbi Yechanan agreeing that the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, right? The days before, if it was a fast day, the loyal sanah behind. So the day before is also the day after is mutter, and the loyal masped behind, the day before the day after is also. So we're passing like Rabbi Yosi, not like Shmuel, right? You have Rav and Rabbi Yechanan all passing like what? Like Rabbi Yosi. Says the Gemara, Amalei Rabbi Chia Lebali. So Rabbi Chia says to Bali, I want to explain to you what it means when I say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yechanan. I says, I'm going to explain it to you. Ki Amar Rabbi Yechanan halacha Rabbi Yosi ad loylas ano. What did it mean when Rabbi Yechanan is saying that the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi? That meant on the situation of ad loylas ano. What did it mean ad loylas ano? When the Mishnah told us that it says in Megillas Taanit that there are certain days loylas ano behind, that you're not allowed to fast on them. So we say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, that the day before is Asr, right? The day after is Mutter, but the day before is Asr. That is how we pass on like Rabbi Yosi. But the Leilim is spade behind, there Rabbi Yochanan doesn't agree that halacha is like Rabbi Yosi. On the days of Leilim is spade behind, that according to Rabbi Yosi, the day before and the day after will be Asr, we still don't say that. We say only the day before is got to be Asr, not the day after. Right? So it means we're passing like in that one, like Rabbi Meir. So we're coming out now. Even if according to Rabbi Yechanan, who says that the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, it's only partially like Rabbi Yosi. On the situation of Loyal Sanabah, it's like Rabbi Yosi, we don't fast the day after. We can fast the day after, but we can't fast the day before. What do you call it? I'm saying this backwards. If we say like Rabbi Yechanan says the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi. So what does that mean? That means for all practical intents and purposes that the day before is also going to be Asr, but the day after is going to be Mutter on Leilas Hana. But Leilim Esped, which according to Rabbi Yosi, the day after should be Asr. We don't go to Rabbi Yosi, we go there with Rabbi Meir. So it always comes out on whether it's a Leilas Hana behind or Leilas Esped behind, on any one of those days, we're always saying the day before is got to be Asr, like Rabbi Yosi, or like a mayor, in the case of Dloil Mispei, and the day after is always going to be mutter. In the case of Dloil Sana, that's going to be mutter like a mayor, and going to be mutter like Rabbi Yosi. And the days of Dloil Mispei is going to be mutter only because Rabbi Meir holds that. Rabbi Yosi does not hold that. That's the Gemara's conclusion until here. Yeah. So that's the so the Gemara now asks a Zaytik question now on Rabbi Yochanan. In other words, for all practical intents and purposes, Rabbi Yechanan hold like Rabbi Yosi. Right? We're going to see that for all practical intents and purposes, this is very, very not relevant. This man has said, and we don't pass like any of these days. The whole Megillas Taanit is sort of bottle in the sense that obviously it talks about Hanukkah, Purim, whatever. We still do that, of course, but it's not because of Megillas Taanit. But the other days, no one knows what they are, let alone pass on them. So again, some of these days are even more than Shulchan Aruch, and nevertheless, we still don't. Nobody's fasting on the Ches Tevis or Tes Tevis, like we don't have these days. Yeah. So the more so like this. On now that we said that Rabbi Yechanan holds like Rabbi Yosi, partially. So says the Gemara, is that in fact true? Me Amar Rabbi Yechanan Haki. Does in fact Rabbi Yechanan hold like this? The Amar Rabbi Yechanan halacha is Stam Mishnah. Doesn't Rabbi Yechanan say that the halacha is like the Stam Mishnah? What is the Stam Mishnah? Stam Mishnah means that that we're going to paskin we're going to pass like the Stam without having Rabbi Yosi be relevant. What do we mean? Say like this: And I just want to point out that we don't have time really to go through this, but there's a couple of very interesting points here in Tosfos. First is before we turn the page, if you look in Tosfos, the ilu ikla, so Tosfos literally brings down Persha Kuntras, brings down exactly the same question as Rashi. So the question that Rashi is asking is that we said in the Gemara that Akat Yom Tamnaya Aser Mishum Chag Shvaya. The eighth day is going to remain Aser because of the holiday of the Shavuos holiday. So even if the first 8 days of Nisan were canceled as a holiday, it would be canceled as a result of the whatever event happened. Nevertheless, they have the second holiday from the 8th day of Nisan till the end of Pesach for the Shavuos. So Rashi asks, okay, I understand that you want to say that you start from the 8th till the end of Pesach for the Shavuos holiday. Correct, Rashi. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if I cancel the first holiday for the Carbon Thomas, so the first 8 days is gone, I could still say the 9th day. And since we're passing like Rabbi Yossi, right, the day before the 9th day is going to be Aser. So I could just say it starts from the 9th day, and I still know the 8th day is Aser. Why do I have to say that it started from the 8th day because of the cancellation? If the Carbon Talmud holiday is canceled, it's still going to be Aser. So Rashi here answers that it's different to say that the 8th day is Aser because it's the Yom Kama of the Shavuos holiday. It's like it's the first day of it versus it's the day before the first day of it. It's different. Whether or not we like the answer is not important. The fascinating point is, as we said from the Maharatz in the beginning of Taanit, is Rashi and Taanit Rashi. Look at this Tosfos, right? We've shown how many riots against like the Maharatz that this cannot be regular Rashi. You look at this Tosfos. Tosfos brings down every single word of Rashi. V'hiksha b'kuntris. He brings down the kasha of Rashi. V'tiras ha'kuntris brings down the answer of Rashi. Literally quoting what Rashi over here says. So it would be a raya that he didn't have a normal Rashi to use because he would never have quoted Rashi hook, line, and sinker the whole chapter and verse. If he had it in front of him, he could have said Rashi asked like this. And if he likes Rashi's answer, he wouldn't bring the whole thing down unless for the fact is that he probably didn't have it in front of him. Yet we have it mamish in front of us is another raya that he wasn't looking at a regular Rashi. The Tosfos weren't looking at a regular Rashi that we have like right here sitting by us. Second, bottom Tosfos here, Rav Amar Halach Rabbi Yossi. So over here we have an interesting question. I don't know why Tosfos doesn't answer the question the way we could push and answer it, which is we're going to now talk about the days of Purim. The days of Purim, right? Obviously, the 14th and the 15th are going to be fundamentally also they're mentioned in the Megillah. Even if they're again mentioned in Megillah's Taanit or not, it's irrelevant. It's mentioned in the Megillah itself. But we fast the day before Purim. We fast the day before the 14th. We're fasting on the 13th. Taanit asks, how can we fast? Don't we see the day before one of these days that you're not supposed to fast to have a hesped is Aser and hesped and Taanit? So how can we fast on the 13th day of Adar? So Tosfos gives his answers. The Pashut answer, which Tosfos doesn't give, is the answer that we give as a general matter whenever anyone's asked about fasting on that day. Right, it's fundamentally different than the 4 fasts. Right, Tish B'Av, Asar B'Teves, right, Tzom Gedalia, and Yud Zayid and Tammuz. These are all fasts which are mentioned in Navi, and they're mentioned actually in the Navi is going to be one of the holidays, etc. Taanit is not mentioned. It is mentioned that Esther and everybody fasted before she went into Achashverosh, although that fast took place in Nisan. That had nothing to do with Adar. We're fasting in commemoration of that. But what's the fundamental difference in Pesach on all those days versus Taanit Esther? Because Taanit Esther, the littlest thing you could break the fast. Why? Because it's a happy holiday. It's a happy fast. So I don't know why Tosfos doesn't just simply use that to say, look, this is not really a question. It's not relevant to the other fasts. This is a fast and celebration as opposed to fast of mourning. So when we're saying Loilas Hanabahin, Loilam Espeidbahin is to not make mourning days out of something. But the fast of Taanit Esther is not a sad fast, a happy fast. I'll leave that as a question. I'm not 100% sure why Tosfos didn't just say that as a question answer. All right, so now we're asking a question. According to Rabbi Yochanan says that the day before The day before is going to be also like Rabbi Yossi. He passes like Rabbi Yossi. So the day when it says that whatever holiday we're mentioned, the eighth, the first 8 days, the second eighth, and the Pesach, these holidays, we pass like Rabbi Yossi. That the day before is also. Okay, so now the Gemara says, really, did Rabbi Yochanan really hold this? Well, me, Rabbi Yochanan, Hakim, Rabbi Yochanan, Allah, Stam Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan said that Allah is like a Stam Mishnah, like we generally say. Utznan, and we learn in the Mishnah, Afal Pisha Amu Magdim V'Lo Ma'achman. If you turn the page now to your Chesed Beis, even though we normally say that when it comes to the holiday of Purim, right? Purim is able to be brought earlier to the day of Yom HaKnisa, right? Because remember, the people from the small towns who didn't have minyan regularly, they lived in a farm or whatever, they would come into the market days, right? Mondays and Thursdays. So if Purim, if the 14th day was, let's say, a Sunday, right? So you'd be mocked in Yom HaKnisa to the 11th. Right? If it's a Tuesday, you're going to do it on a Monday, which would be the 13th, right? If it was a Wednesday, you'd be bringing it to the Monday, which would be the 12th, right? So you're able to go and lay in the Megillah 11, 12, and 13, not just the 14th and the 15th. This is a special thing about Purim. So the Mishnah, we're learning the follows. So you're able to make the days earlier, but you're not able to make them later. Nevertheless, the earlier days are mutter behasbid v'tainis. They are mutter in Hesped and Taanit. All the days are mutter and Hesped and Taanit. The Mormon say, what are you talking about? What do we mean it's mutter and Hesped and Taanit? Remember, according to Rabbi Yochanan, shouldn't be mutter and Hesped and Taanit. The day before we pass on the Bereshit, it should be Aser. So the Mormon say, understand, what do we mean when we say first that it's mutter and Hesped and Taanit? What earlier days are mutter and Hesped and Taanit? Says the Mormon. Amos, what do we say? If what we're saying is, we're talking about the 15th day people. In other words, these are Yaris Mekaf and Chayma. These are the walled cities in Israel. That's Yerushalayim, right? So they lay in the Megillah went on the 15th. So you're saying by them, for whatever reason, they're landing it now on the 14th. So Mishari, you're going to say that now on the 14th, you're able to do Hesped and Tainus? How could that be? Megillah's Tainus, but don't we learn in Megillah's Tainus? The days of the 14th and 15th day of Adar are Purim. Let's stay behind. Because those are days of actual Purim, and you cannot do a Hesped or Tainus on those days. The Amar Rava, and Rava adds on this. I don't need Megillah's Tainus to tell me this. LLS as S shall zeh bezeh S shall zeh bezeh. Rava says I don't need Megillah's Tainus to teach me that the 14th day is also or the 15th day is also. Obviously, it says in the pasuk that Shnei Yom Ha'eleh, these 2 days are going to be Yimei Mishta v'Simcha. Of course they're going to be Aser, because the pasuk says, not because Megillah's Tainus says it. Elamai, what's the reason that we say in Megillah's Tainus that it's Aser on the 14th and the 15th? It's to teach you something additional. What's the additional point I'm teaching you? That if you happen to be in a city which not Mukaf and Chayma on that day, and you live in Yerushalayim, so you land on the 14th. And vice versa, if you happen to be living in a city in Tel Aviv, but you're in Yerushalayim, and if you're a yeshiva guy, you do this like l'chadchila, you run around to every place to be Mekayim every day of Purim. So okay. Do you have the halachas of those days wherever you are? That's what the Chiddush and Megillah's Tainus is. So what's it going to come out? It's going to come out that on the 15th day, you're landing on the 14th. Of course, the Aser has been in Tainus. Where would there be a heter? There's no heter here. So what do we mean when we say that Allah is like the Stam Mishnah, mutar mehesped tainus? It's mutar and hesped tainus. Obviously not the 14th. That's for sure. It cannot be the 14th. So where are you going to find the day that's mutar and hesped tainus? Not the 14th. So it says the more of base. Let's say we're talking about the 14th day people. And they are landing it when? On the 13th. On the 13th, Yom Nikanor, there's a separate holiday of Yom Nikanor. Marsha says, what do you mean Yom Nikanor? We're going to see in the Gemara later on. Nikanor was a bad guy. He was a Greek general, was making fun of the Jews, and every day would pick up his hands and his thumbs and say, when I'm going to destroy the Jewish people. Not the Nikanor from the Gemara in Yom Laman Zion about the gates of Nikanor. That he obviously was a Jew. How could he have a Jew have Goshen hands? Look at the Gemara Gittin Yud Aleph. That was the common practice. Anyhow, the point for now is that there was a separate holiday on the 13th day of Adar called Yom Nikanor. We have Tanis Esther, but they had Yom Nikanor. So the Gemara says, what do you mean to say that you're telling me that on the 13th day, that's the day that's going to be Mutter and Hesped and Tainus? It's also in Hesped and Tainus, because it's literally called a separate holiday called Yom Nikanor. So if Ela B'nai Arbeit Sefer Kakar Le'Betrays, maybe it can't be that. It's done of the 14th day people who are landing normally on the 14th, but they have to mark them Yom HaKnisa because they haven't got a normal minyan. So they're landing on the 12th, right? Because their Purim turned out on Wednesday. The Gemara says, okay, so that do you want to say it's mutter and hesped and tainis? No, Yom Trainisu. That's Yom Trainisu. It's some other day called Yom Trainisu, the Trajan's holiday. It was again another enemy of the Jews. So says the Gemara, well, if that's also another holiday, it's also us. So when are you going to find out a situation when the day before is a mutter and hesped and tainis? So it says the Gemara, the kakarla b'chadeisar. He's landing on the 11th, right? So Purim in that year was on Sunday, and to be back to me, Maknisa is on the 11th, on the Thursday before. And we're saying that it's mutter and hesped and tainis. And that you want to say now is going to be is going to be the day when Rabbi Yechon is saying that looks like a Stam Mishnah. Even though you say you make it earlier and not later, it's mutter and hesped and tainis, right? So we're saying that this day is mutter and hesped and tainis. You want to say that now it's what we're talking about is that we're going back to the 11th. Says the Gemara. Ella the lav the kakarla bechadesa v'katani mutter behesped and tainis. So you want to say that is the secret sauce? That's where you're going to find the situation of where it's mutter and hesped and tainis because you're landing it on the 11th. The Gemara says that's not going to be the situation where I'm finding the one place where I can figure out a day where it's mutter and hesped and tainis, even though I'm landing the Megillah. So if you look at Rashi, Rashi says b'chadeisar shechal liyos yudal b'ach b'shabbos ekvar makim le'maknisa dahav yudal v'shmamino da'afagav shugam shlofnei treines. Right, even though it's the day before this 12th day of Adar, which is the day of treines, right, which should be a holiday, and the day before should be also Asar. Da'afagav shugam shlofnei treines shari b'hesped tainis. Nevertheless, it's still mutter in hesped and tainis. You're going to say that's the day? Says the Gemara, no, I don't like this as the answer. Says the Gemara, loy b'nei arba asar. What we're talking about really is the 14th day. And you're really landing it on the 12th day. The Ka'amis, Yom Trainus, when you're asking me, how could you do you say it's Mutter and Hesped and Tainus, isn't it the day of Trainus, like its own holiday? So Yom Trainus, Gupe Batlui. So the Gemara says, but the Yom Trainus was itself already Batal. There's no Yom Trainus anymore. Why? We don't, Rashi says, know who this is, but the Yom Trainus day itself was canceled. In other words, you can't say that the 11th day is the day that you're going to rely on. And you're going to end up in a situation where, I see on the 11th day it's mutter and hesped and tainis, even though it's the day before Yom Trainus, because the Yom Trainus itself was batal. For whatever reason, it was batal. Shema and Ach, we don't really know who they are. The Rashi says maybe it's talking about a situation in Navi, where over there talks about Edo was eaten by a lion, and it talks about Shemaiah right before that. The Maharsha says it's not possible. Why? Because how could it be? Either Hanavi is during the Zirav Menavat. We're talking about Megillas Tainus. Megillas Tainus is hundreds of years after the first Beis Hamikdash. The whole thing is ahistorical. It's anachronistic. It's impossible. So we don't know who Shmai and Achi. Some people will die. Whatever it was that Shmai and Achi, whoever they were, Shmai and his brother, they were very special. For whatever reasons they died, and it canceled out this Yom Trainus. So if Yom Trainus is canceled, then the day before that is going to be what? By definition, it's mutter. It's not. You're not like having a chiddush. The 11th day is mutter because it's the day before the Yom Trainus. So you see that you're a steer in Rabbi Yochanan that he's not holding like Rabbi Yossi. He could hold like Rabbi Yossi, and the day before could still be aser, but the 11th is going to be mutter because the Yom Trainus is canceled. Even though it says in Megillas Tainus, it's already canceled because it was this big tragedy of Shmai and Achia. So says the Gemara. So you don't have a question now in Rabbi Yochanan. So there's no steer in Rabbi Yochanan now. So Rabbi Nachman goes to Tanis of a Treisar. We have a proof of this. Rabbi Nachman wanted to be guys who were Tanis on the 12th day. Amalei Rabbanu Yom Trainasu. They said to him, but isn't it Yom Trainus? Amalei Yom Trainus. Gufay Batlu. It was already Batal. Because already Shemai and Achi already passed away. So it says the more typically the Havila Yom Shalfnei Nikanar. But maybe let's say if it's the 12th day, it's the day before the 13th. The 13th is Yom Nikanar. So maybe we could say on the 12th day is usher, not from the trainus aspect. Maybe it could be usher on the what? It could be usher the day before the Yom Nikanar, which is the 13th. It's also batal. The Yom Nikanar is batal. Mishum Yom Nikanar. So the Gemara says that's also batal. Says the Gemara Mishum Yom Nikanar Nekim and Nigzar. When the day itself is batal the Yom Trainers, you're going to now say because of the Yom Nikkener, we're going to be Megaizer it. In other words, if the 12th day is by definition now going to be mutter because there's no more Yom Trainers, now you want to say it's also because it's the day before the Yom Nikkener, we're not going to go there. So that's to say, it's going to come out. We have no question on Rabbi Yechon. Rabbi Yechon can say we hold like Rabbi Yossi, and nevertheless, the people who are laying in the Megillah normally on the 14th, but they're bringing it to the 12th because of whatever the reasons are, they could bring it to the 12th, and you will not be fasting on that day, and not you will not be able to ask a question of Rabbi Yechon because ultimately it is the day before it is the day before the Yom Nikkener, but because we canceled the Yom Trainers, we're going to keep it canceled. I just want to fly through the rest of it over here. The Gemara says, "My Nikkener, my Trainers. What is these holidays?" The Taanit Nikkener Echam Me'afrocha Yevanamai was the general. V'chayim v'yayim hein hayamen if Yada al Yehuda v'Yerushalayim. He used to pick up his hands on Yehuda and Yerushalayim. V'amar emisar tipo b'yadi. When are they going to fall into my hands? V'amar sen I'm going to go trample over it. Shagav Malchus Chashmonai b'Nitzchom. When the Chashmonai beat up on the Greeks, Katsu behind his Yad Ragav, they cut off his hands and his feet. The only example we find of this in Tanakh, by the way, is the beginning of Shaftim. The first paragraph that we talk about Adoni Bezek, who said he had the 70 kings who cut off his hands, he cut off their hands and feet, kept it under his table, and then we say about him that we punished him by cutting off his hands and feet, his not his hands, his thumbs and his big toes. Yeah. So what do they do with his hands and feet? They hung him up in Yerushalayim. The mouth that spoke with such a chutzpah, we didn't comment to him. My trainers. So the Gemara says, what is the trainers? Because the biggest trainers, again, we don't exactly know who they were. Rashi says a story. The Gemara says in a few places about who they were. These people, they were special people. There was a gezerah against the Jews. They said maybe they killed the emperor's daughter. And Linus and Papa said that they did it. So they got punished instead. So in Lud, that's Lud. So the king said to them, if you're from this nation of Chananim Shavazar, you have Elekechem v'yatzel miyad Hashem save you. There sheitzas Chananim Shavazar miyad Nebuchadnezzar. Some of the Chananim Shavazar, tzaddikim gemurin hayu. Chananim Shavazar were not like us. They were great tzaddikim. V'ra'uyin hayu le'asas lem nesim. Nebuchadnezzar melech hagun v'ra'uyin le'asas nesal yadai. Nebuchadnezzar was a real king, and Chananim Shavazar were tzaddikim. Russia had you do, but you're a bad guy. You're not going to be able to have an ace. And we are chayiv. We're not great people, so we're not going to have any great nasim. And if you don't kill us, Hashem will kill us in other ways. Hashem could have lions and bears kill us, or people. Hashem put us in your hands in order for you to kill us. Even though they gave the whole speech, he still killed them. And they came, Roman messengers came and killed up these people, and so this king also got his just desert. So we'll have to stop over here.